Ferrari vs Lamborghini, the rivalry that changed supercars. Imagine telling Ferrari, one of the most powerful car brands in the world, that their cars are terrible. Now imagine the person saying it is a tractor manufacturer. That's basically how one of the greatest rivalries in automotive history began. Ferrari had racing pedigree, legendary cars, and an army of loyal fans. Lamborghini? They wanted to build a car that could beat Ferrari at its own game. But here's the crazy part. Lamborghini wasn't even supposed to be Ferrari's rival. So how did two Italian brands go from one man's frustration to producing some of the most iconic supercars ever made? And later, we'll get to the car that helped Lamborghini announce to the entire world, "We're here." To understand the rivalry, we have to go back to the beginning. Ferrari was already a legend. Enzo Ferrari had built his reputation through motorsport, and the Ferrari name became associated with speed, racing, and exclusivity. But in the early 1960s, another Italian businessman was about to enter the scene. His name was Ferruccio Lamborghini, and ironically, he wasn't famous for sports cars. He built tractors. Ferruccio Lamborghini was successful, wealthy, and apparently a serious car enthusiast. He owned a Ferrari, but he wasn't completely satisfied with it. According to the famous story, Lamborghini believed Ferrari's road cars had issues with their clutches and overall drivability. So he went directly to Enzo Ferrari with his criticism, and Ferrari reportedly didn't take kindly to it. The exact details of the exchange have been debated over the years, but the important part is what happened next. Lamborghini decided that if Ferrari wasn't going to build the car he wanted, he would build it himself, and that decision changed automotive history. In 1963, Lamborghini founded Automobili Ferruccio Lamborghini. At first, the goal wasn't simply to embarrass Ferrari. Lamborghini wanted to create a high-performance grand touring car that was fast, refined, and comfortable enough to drive on the road. And then came the car that changed everything. But before we get to that car, there's something important you need to understand about Lamborghini. They didn't start with decades of racing heritage. They had to find another way to get Ferrari's attention, and their answer was engineering. Lamborghini hired some incredibly talented engineers and designers. Among them was Giotto Bizzarini, who had previously worked on Ferrari's V12 engines. Then came Gianpaolo Dallara and other engineers who helped develop Lamborghini's first production car. The result was the 350 GT. It wasn't a Ferrari clone, it was Lamborghini's own statement. You can have performance without sacrificing comfort. But Lamborghini wasn't done. In 1966, the company introduced something much more dramatic, the Miura. And this is where the rivalry gets really interesting. The Miura put a V12 engine behind the driver in a mid-engine layout. Today, that sounds normal for an exotic supercar. Back then, it was revolutionary. The Miura looked like nothing else on the road. Low, wide, aggressive, and unbelievably exotic. Suddenly, Ferrari had a serious problem. Because Lamborghini wasn't just making fast cars, it was making cars that people dreamed about. And Ferrari's response would help create another legendary Lamborghini. But first, Ferrari had something Lamborghini couldn't simply copy: racing dominance. Ferrari's identity was deeply connected to motorsport. Formula One, endurance racing. Le Mans, racing was part of Ferrari's DNA. Lamborghini, on the other hand, focused primarily on road cars. So the two companies were taking different paths. Ferrari was saying, race car technology brought to the road. Lamborghini was saying, why shouldn't a road car feel like a spaceship? And that difference became part of their identities. Ferrari developed cars like the 365 GTB4 Daytona, while Lamborghini followed the Miura with another icon, the Countach. When the Countach appeared, it looked almost impossible. Its sharp, angular design was completely different from the softer curves of earlier supercars. And those famous scissor doors? They became one of Lamborghini's trademarks. The rivalry had evolved. It wasn't just about horsepower anymore, it was about identity. Ferrari represented racing heritage and tradition. Lamborghini represented rebellion, drama, and excess. Fast forward through the decades, and the rivalry continued. Ferrari produced icons like the F40, F50, Enzo, and later the LaFerrari. Lamborghini answered with cars like the Diablo, Murcielago, Aventador, and later the Revuelto. And every generation brought the same question: which one is better? Ferrari often focused on precision, performance, and the driving experience. Lamborghini leaned heavily into theatrical design, dramatic styling, and outrageous presence. But here's the thing, there doesn't have to be one winner, because these brands became successful by being different. If Ferrari is the sophisticated racing champion, Lamborghini is the rebellious rock star. And that's exactly why the rivalry has lasted so long. Remember that car I mentioned earlier, the one that helped Lamborghini announce itself to the world? The Miura wasn't just another supercar. It helped popularize the idea that a mid-engine road car could be both incredibly fast and incredibly desirable. And its influence can still be seen in supercars today. So, did Lamborghini actually beat Ferrari? Not exactly. Instead, it did something arguably more important. It forced Ferrari to keep evolving. And Ferrari did the same to Lamborghini. And that's what makes this rivalry so fascinating. Ferrari and Lamborghini didn't just compete with each other, they pushed each other to create some of the greatest cars the world has ever seen. So if you had to choose just one, Ferrari or Lamborghini, drop your choice in the comments. And if you enjoyed this story, hit subscribe, because in the next video, we're diving into another legendary automotive rivalry that got even more intense. Check description for business opportunity.